My name is Aisha. This is VETT 222. Today I'm going to be doing task 4, which is a white blood cell count differential. So first, before we start doing our counts and everything like that, and a whole lot of math, I'm going to just briefly go over the type of white blood cells we're looking at, and then also look at what nucleated red blood cells look like, which can change our count if greater than 10, and then kind of what the white blood cells do if they're elevated, or what that kind of means if they're elevated in the smear. So we have a really good picture version, actual picture version, so I'm going to show you that instead of any kind of drawn version of the cells. So we're going to go over these individually. The first thing I'm going to show you is nucleated red blood cells, which are going to look like that, this little guy right here in the middle. Those are premature, and so those can kind of throw off your count and may come from marrow too soon, kind of like these guys right here, reticulocytes. So then our big common white blood cell is going to be your neutrophil. So that is a segmented neutrophil. Band neutrophil, they're kind of just more connected in one little U shape, but they account for about 60% of white blood cells in a normal smear and normal differential. And so they're the first kind of responders. They respond to infection and inflammation, and they are there to begin with. The next ones that we're going to see are going to be now lymphocytes are the second most prevalent white blood cell, so it's going to be these guys right here. Mostly you'll see that it's mostly full of the nucleus and just a small amount of cytoplasm around it, and that's going to be the second most common white blood cell, and that is for an immune response. If there's an increased amount of these, or an abnormal amount, it should be about 30% of your count. If there's an increased amount of these, then you may have an immune-mediated response going on, something that's going on with the immune system, cancer perhaps, or lymphoma, for an example. Then the next one we're going to look at is right here. It's monocyte. So you can see it kind of doesn't really have a circle of cytoplasm. It's not really contained in any one shape, and it's definitely much larger than the red blood cells that are around it. And so those are not super common. They're actually found higher in higher numbers from stress. So they're stress related. You won't see too many of these. So the next ones that we're going to kind of look at are the eosinophils and the basophils. They're very similar in that they both will appear during allergic reaction. So you'll see these kinds of guys when you have like a sensitivity or a hypersensitivity to an allergic reaction. Basophils are seen much less common. You shouldn't really see them at all, really, but they're very rare to see. And then eosinophils, you'll see these for allergic reactions, but also if your patient is inundated with some type of parasite. So you'll see these guys right there, and you'll see it's kind of really gritty there in the cytoplasm. Kind of looks like a three-piece flower going on in there, but it's slightly larger than the red blood cells. But the monocyte's definitely the largest white blood cell that you're going to look at. And then while we're doing our white blood cell count, we're also going to be looking at platelets. So these are these little guys right down here. They clump to start healing trauma wounds and stuff like that. So it's just what helps your blood clot. And so we'll look on the feathered edge, make sure there's no platelet clumps, because that can throw our white blood cell count off. So we'll just do a platelet estimate if there is none. If there is, we'll go ahead and notate that there were platelet clumps, and if the platelet count seems too low, then that could be the reason why. Okay, so I have my smear right here, so you can see, and it has the rainbow effect. We're going to be looking in the feathered edge right here and in the monolayer. Mostly we're going to be looking in the monolayer to look at our white blood cells. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on my stage. So we're going to look on the 4X view first, just to make sure that everything is looking good, the stain is accurate, it's been adequately stained, the monolayer's thin enough. So we'll go ahead and do that, lift the stage all the way up. I do it with my glasses off. This is easier for me. And then once we get down to the oil immersion, that's when we'll start actually counting. Our clinic doesn't have an actual counter, so I actually have an app on my phone that I use that allows me to click on which ones I'm seeing, and then it'll tell me when I've reached 100 and give me the results. So I will explain all the math at the end, but let's go ahead and make sure that the staining is adequate first. So I'm going to take a look here, and I've started out at the feathered edge. So definitely really good. Color, you can see everything very visibly. I don't see any outwardly large clumps anywhere so far. You can see where it spreads out into the monolayer before becoming the feathered edge. No air bubbles. And the stain looks even throughout and lighter in the monolayer. I don't see any signs of any abnormalities. I don't see any signs of any microfilaria. So I'm going to go ahead and move to our next one, which is going to be the 10X. I'll go ahead and zoom in. Everything still looks pretty even. I can start to see some of my white blood cells. Can't yet tell if there are any platelet clumps in my feathered edge yet. Just not close enough that I can see some white blood cells. Staining still looks even in the monolayer, very large area to work with and see and do our counts. I don't see any abnormalities or air bubbles or signs of streaking throughout the monolayer or the rest of the slide. So I'm going to go ahead and this is where we would be able to, see if we would need to restain, but I don't believe we need to. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the 40x. You can definitely start to see the platelets now. And see pretty clearly a lot of the white blood cells that are presenting themselves. And I still don't see any platelet clumps so far in the feathered edge, but that may change once we get into the oil immersion where I'll really be able to tell. It's very possible that there is. You can see some signs that in this part of the feathered edge it looks like there's potential for platelet clumps, but I cannot see clear enough just yet. The rest of the monolayer looks really good. So I'm going to go ahead and add my oil to the slide. I'm going to lower my stage, go ahead and move it to the middle of the feathered edge of my slide. I'm going to put 1 drop of oil on our slide. I'm going to rotate the focus to the oil immersion lens. Slowly lift it up so that it's just touching the lens. Here we go. Go ahead and refocus. And I'm going to increase the lighting so that I can see in greater detail. Okay. So I'm seeing lots and lots of platelets, which is good. Especially if there are any platelet clumps. The fact that I'm seeing so many platelets already would show that there may be some inaccuracies in an automatic CBC, but that there are a good number of platelets within those patients' body. So I'm going to just keep scanning the feathered edge for platelet clumps, just to make sure that I don't need to rule that out. So far I'm not seeing any platelet clumps, which is good. The places that look like they might be platelet clumps were actually a few nucleated neutrophils, and so I'm going to actually go ahead and move to the monolayer. Still not seeing any platelet clumps in my way. Oh, there's one. It's not a very large one, maybe 15 in total. That's still platelet clump. Let's see if there are any more as I continue my way back down. And so far nothing. There's another one. This platelet clump probably has 10 or so platelets. It's not very large platelet clumps, but some platelet clumps. So we will notate that there may be an inaccuracy. For this reason, but we will still do platelet estimate. I'm going to actually do that first once I get to the monolayer before we start looking at white blood cells. All I'm going to do right now is just kind of go through 10 fields of view, count the amount of platelets that I see, and notate that for 10 fields, we'll average it and multiply it by 15,000 afterwards when we're doing all our math together. But I am in the monolayer now, so let's go ahead and start. For the first field I see .40. Next view. .41. Third view. .48. Stock has definitely a healthy number of platelets going on for sure. .35 on view 4. .37. 36. Seventh field. Five. $38. Two more. $34. $24. Okay. So now I'm going to actually do my white blood cell count up to 100. I'm going to go ahead and open the app that's on my phone so I can accurately count to 100. Okay, so this is what it looks like, and you just kind of click each one and it counts for you. Kind of makes a nice little alarm once you get to 100, so you know that you're done counting. So I'm gonna go ahead and start doing that. As far as the red blood cells go, I don't see any abnormalities. I don't really see any reticulocytes or any kind of crenation or anything like that. They all look really nice and healthy and full. They're all good size and shape, so that's really good as far as that goes. So far in my platelet counts, I haven't seen any nucleated red blood cells, so hopefully that continues. You can just do a regular count. Okay, so let's see. Neutrophil. Lymphocyte. Neutrophil. Neutrophil. Basophil. Neutrophil, lymphocyte, I kind of go in a sweeping motion, up, across, down, across, up, as far as that goes, just to make sure I'm getting everything. Neutrophil, neutrophil, lymphocyte, neutrophil, 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 lymphocyte, neutrophil, so far still no nucleated red blood cells. Neutrophil, neutrophil, lymphocyte, lymphocyte, neutrophil, 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 mm, eosinophil, neutrophil, neutrophil, lymphocyte, lymphocyte, neutrophil, lymphocyte, neutrophil, 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 eosinophil, neutrophil, lymphocyte. We're almost halfway through our count. Just real quick. Lymphocyte, neutrophil, neutrophil, lymphocyte, another platelet clump, lymphocyte, neutrophil, 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 neutrophil. Still not seeing any abnormalities in the red blood cells. There's no abnormal clumping or crenation. Neutrophil, 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 neutrophil. There's another platelet clump. Neutrophil. I can infer it's possible that there are platelet clumps within the sample because this patient was having a seizure when the blood was drawn, and it is possible that they needed to poke more than one time to get the blood while the patient was seizuring. And it could be from the trauma of the actual stick, or it could have been a second stick. The first one was not successful. Neutrophil, neutrophil, eosinophil. Neutrophil, 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 lymphocyte, neutrophil, 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 lymphocyte. Getting close. Just getting to the end. I'll go ahead and readjust. Okay. Neutrophil, neutrophil, eosinophil, neutrophil, 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 neutrophil. Go down lower. Neutrophil, eosinophil, lymphocyte, lymphocyte, neutrophil, basophil, neutrophil, neutrophil, lymphocyte, neutrophil, 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 and that's 100. Okay, so now that we're all done at the count, we'll go ahead and look at the results. So I'm going to have on my paper next to me, I have my platelets. I'm going to write down how many neutrophils. So it says that we counted 77. So this would make it 77%. For monocytes, we counted 0%. For lymphocytes, there were 16, so 16%. Eosinophils, there were 5, so 5%. And there were 2 basophils, so 2% of that. There were no nucleated red blood cells that I saw, so we do not have to worry about doing a corrected white blood cell count. So now we will go ahead and start doing the math. I'm going to go ahead and start with the platelets. So with our platelets, I did 10 views, so we're going to add up the numbers from each view, divide it by 10, and multiply that times 15,000. That will give us our estimated platelet count. So let's go ahead and put in our numbers. I'm going to use a calculator to make sure that there's no mathematical error. 40 plus 41 plus 48 plus 35 plus 37 plus 36 plus 25 plus 38 plus 34 plus 24 equals 358 divided by 10 is going to give us 35.8. We're going to multiply this times 15,000, which will give us an estimated platelet count of 537,000, which is actually a good count as far as platelets go. There were platelet clumps both in the feather edge and in the monolayer, so this may not be completely accurate as far as an estimated count because of those clumps. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to do our total white blood cell count, and then from there we're going to do our absolute values based on using the white blood cell count and doing each type of white blood cell based on their percentages. So now that we have our platelet estimate and we have our percentages for the amounts of white blood cells that we have, we're actually going to get our total white blood cell count. So what we do for that is you take the average number of white blood cells per 5 fields. For me, that was 6. And then you're going to multiply that times 1,000, so that's going to be 6,000. Then you divide it by 4, and that would give you 1,500. So our white blood cell count should be 1,500. So now, to get the absolute value, we have to take that number, 1,500, and multiply it times the percentages of each of our white blood cell types. So for neutrophils, we were at 77%. So now we're going to multiply that 1,500 times 0. Excuse me. We're going to multiply 1,500 times 0.77, that will give us 1,155 neutrophils. We'll take 1,500, multiply by the amount of monocytes we saw, that was 0, which will make it 0. 1,500 times 0.16, or 16% of lymphocytes that we saw, equals 240. Okay. 1,500 times 0.05, or 5% of the eosinophils we saw, are 75, and 1,500 times 0.02 for the 2 basophils that we saw are going to equal 30. So your absolute values there are that out of the 1,500 white blood cells, we have 1,155 neutrophils, 0 monocytes, we have 240 lymphocytes, 75 eosinophils, and 30 basophils. So that is our absolute value for our count.